Today's our final day with the second letter of Peter, and as was the case yesterday, today's verse was part of the passage that I preached on this past Sunday. It's 2 Peter 3, verse 11 through 12a, or the first half of verse 12. Since these things are to be dissolved in this way, what sort of persons ought you to be in leading lives of holiness and godliness, waiting for and hastening the coming day of God? Well, as I shared in the sermon, but some of you might not have seen it, or because it's Saturday, you may already have forgotten, I talked about how it's really a stunning concept to think about the fact that you and I, we can either hasten, we can speed up the coming of the day of God, or delay it even further by how we live our lives. Peter is saying, think about what sort of person you ought to be in leading a life of holiness, a life that shows we are set apart, we are dedicated to God, holiness and godliness, that we are becoming more and more like God in who we are, how we think, what we do, what we say, how we treat other people, that we can hasten and speed up the return of God. Because remember what Jesus' prayer is when the disciples ask him in Luke's gospel, teach us to pray. And we always pray in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come where? On earth, right? Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so part of our task is to be growing in holiness and godliness all of our life, as long as we live. And if we do, Peter is implying, well, the more holiness, the more godliness there is on earth, the more we actually hasten the day, the coming of the day of God. So as I reflect on that, I think, well, that's such an awesome responsibility, isn't it? To think on your shoulders and my shoulders. God may come sooner or later or much, much later, depending on how Christians around the world live their lives. And so on the one hand, in 2 Peter chapter 3, we have this idea of God is patient, not wanting any to perish, but all to come to repentance. And then the idea, but in that patience of God, you and I each have a role to play in hastening the day of God. So I plead with you and I encourage you, as Peter does, to lead a life of holiness and godliness, to help speed the day when God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's Jesus' prayer for his disciples, and that's our prayer as well.